Doomsday
Bill.
Dave, God bless you. Glad you're here.
Well, I never had an introduction like that before. That was pretty good with the trumpets.
Oh, yeah, that's the shofar of Jesus Christ coming. Hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus. We're just blessed to have you, Brother Dave. We know that the Planet X news site is just absolutely overflowing with stuff having to do with Planet X. And I'm just going to go ahead. Now, I'm here, so if you want to toss the microphone back my way or whatever, feel free. But I'm just going to kind of fade back into the background and let you go ahead and share with people the whole gamut. You know, what have you learned? What's up with this Planet X? What does the Earth need to be expecting to happen? Where do you think it is? What do you think the prognosis is of this whole, event or series of events that are coming? How do you think it interplays with World War III across the Earth? Just kind of give us the full gamut of your research and some of the stuff and also share with us your testimony as well. And I'll just go ahead and I'll be right here with my mic mute on if you need me or you want to ask, pass the mic over my way. But I'm just going to go ahead and let you go ahead and share with people, the listeners, this awesome research that you have done and a little bit about your testimony, brother.
Yeah, I'll start basically from the beginning how I got interested in it, and feel free to interject any time. I mean, that's fine. I'm okay with that, no problem. And I appreciate you having me on the show. And I'll tell you, I heard about Planet X probably about 6 years ago, and I've always been interested in the cosmos and aliens and all that sort of stuff since I was a little kid. And I've always, looked out there and wondered all the time. But anyway, I work as an independent contractor, and I usually work in the nuclear business. And a colleague of mine had mentioned this to me, and I sort of gave him a sort of a side glance because I thought, yeah, right, this can't be real. And but it got my curiosity up, so I decided I'd get on the net and I'd start to look for stuff. Well, I found a mountain, literally a mountain of information. But I also, after a little bit of time, realized a lot of it was misinformation. And that's what we've got to be really careful about, what we read and what we listen to, whether it is factual or whether it's, hype. So after going through many, many sites, I came across planetxnews.com. And I have to say that I found that particular site, I don't know, I'm giving it a bit of a plug, but it's true. I found that particular site really, really informative, and it wasn't full of hype. So I really enjoyed reading some of the stories that were on that. And I'll tell you, I'll be honest with you, it took me about 2 years of research before I'd even believe the fact that there's a possibility there's a Planet X out there and heading our way. So it did. It took me a long time. And it took me a long time to filter through all the stuff. Who do I believe and who do I not believe? So it's a very difficult subject because, like I said, there's been a lot of misinformation in there, such as, when you get to the millennium, they reckon the aircrafts are going to fall out the sky. You get 2013, California's going to fall into the ocean, and you're going to be raining down meteors and so forth. So even like the movie. And none of this happened, so people obviously think, well, this is all full of baloney. And I mean, some of it obviously was because it never happened. But I think that was sort of a, sort of Peter crying wolf, so to speak. And I think that once I'd filtered through it all, there was a few people that I did sort of listen to and sort of respected, for their research and what they did. And there was one guy there by the name of Marshall Masters who actually went down to the Antarctic because he said that, and according to Zachariah Stitchin, that it would come from below the equator, from the ecliptic, below the ecliptic. So that would be the point of it coming by our planet. Now, I don't believe that Planet X is going to crash into our planet by any means, but I know that the excuse me, the wings of this planet are millions and millions of miles long, and it's got obviously two wings, and it's bringing with it a lot of debris. It's pushing a lot of debris ahead of it, but it's also bringing a lot of debris with it. And in that debris would be meteors, so forth, that would actually rain down on the Earth, much like that movie 2013. So I kind of wonder, whether there's a relationship between the government and Hollywood, when they're putting it out there just sort of let us know this is what's coming, but, they sort of advertise it as fiction. But anyway, so like I delved into this quite a bit, and I do visit a few other sites as well, just to catch up on stuff. And this is where I get all my information. That's the only place I can, because I'm just an ordinary person, like an ordinary citizen. I'm not an astronomer. I'm not a scientist. I'm just an ordinary guy trying to gather all this information and share it with people. And when I was with Planet X News, when I was reading the articles and stuff, they advertised on there they wanted people to write for them. So I thought, I might be able to write one or two. So I contacted Brad at Planet X News, and I said to him, I said, look, I said I'm not a writer, but I said I can probably put together a couple of articles for you, and he was quite happy with that. So I began to write. Well, I couldn't stop. The amount of information I'd stored in my head and the research that I'd done, I had so much in there, I just kept writing and writing and writing and writing. In fact, I'd probably write 2 or 3 a week, which I don't know if any people understand this, but when someone like me writes and sends it in, then it all has to be edited. And it takes a lot of work, because I have to read everything and make sure, the spell check and all that sort of stuff. So a lot of work goes into editing these articles. I kept him really, really busy, so I couldn't stop. And I've been with them now probably, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years, and I've written probably 130 odd, maybe more. So I've written quite a few articles on the information that I've gathered. And one thing I have done, and I promised people that I would never give a date of an arrival, for the simple fact is I don't know. I have not got that capability, and I don't have an infrared telescope to look out there and figure out and calculate it mathematically when this is going to fly by. But I do believe it's going to fly by.
You know what, brother?
Yeah.
There are a number of quote, I'm using, the double quote thing, experts out there that are revered by many people and have been on many radio shows that have made such predictions, and they've been all wrong. They've been all incorrect. And so I think it's just, here's another thing, another point of interest that I think you'll really kind of get a kick out of, is there's a prophecy by Sarah Monet from 1979. It was a vision she was given in a near-death experience, and I know that you said that you had one. Would love to hear that testimony. But guess what? She when all the cataclysms and horrible things were happening across the earth, in her vision, she saw it. She said that she knew in her heart, spiritually, that there was a planet, some kind of a planet out there causing it, but she never said anything about having actually seen it. Although I do know there are some Mother Shipton prophecies that indicate a red dragon moves across the sky 6 times, so we'll just have to wait and see. But anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. That's fine. But this, so with Planet X coming by, and from what I can understand and what I've learned is, it's going to go around the sun, but we're going to go through that tail twice. Now, it all depends on which side of the Earth is going to be facing this debris. So chances are that one side will get it, and then, we'll flip around and the other side will get it as well. Or it may be that, just the one side of the Earth will get pelted. So it's kind of scary, because it's not going to be very nice. There's going to be a lot of death. There's going to be a lot of huge amount of turmoil. It's just going to completely change our way of life, utterly and completely. Now, I have heard rumor. Now, whether this is true or whether it's not true, there was some rumor about August this year, but there was also another one that I saw that by David Mead, and he writes on our site, and he said that he believed that by the end of September, first week of October, is when that time is going to arrive. Now, it's not coming from me. That's just coming from somebody else. Because I said, I've never seen Planet X. People have, if you look on the web, you can Google it, and you'll see all kinds of video of people filming Planet X. Some of it is sundogs, some of it is lens flare, and some of it is Photoshop. And I reckon that a great majority of those are all false. Some people do that just to get see how many hits they can get, which I don't think that's fair. I really don't. Some people really believe that they filmed it, not realizing, maybe not a camera expert or whatever, and I'm certainly not. But you get sundogs or flares and stuff like that. It's So it's hard to distinguish. Obviously me not being an expert, I can't tell. I have to go to somebody that is and say, take a look at this picture, tell me what you think. And he'll go through and he'll look at it and give me his opinion. But he could be wrong too. But I hate the fact that we've got so much disinformation, because I feel that really confuses people. And I don't think that's fair, because all I'm trying to do as an individual is determine the truth and share that with everybody. Now, there's a lot of people on the site that write stories, put all this fantastic stuff and predictions out there that are making a lot of money off of this. And I'm telling you right now, I'm not making 1 cent. Nothing. I do this voluntarily. So I don't accept any money at all. Because I don't think that helping people, I should get rewarded for it. I think that personally, if I've got something to share and it's very important, I'll give that for free. Why would I, I'm not making a living at this. I'm sort of getting old now and sort of semi-retired. So I work some of the year and sometimes I don't. It just depends. But, you can go onto that site, actually, planetxnews.com, and you can go to where it says Doomsday Dave, and I'll explain the Doomsday Dave. In fact, it was my brother-in-law that gave me that nickname. And rather than fight it, I just accepted it and sort of kept it. And then the funny part about it was my daughter for Christmas had a picture of me with, I got to put on a T-shirt with Doomsday Dave on it and planetxnews.com underneath. And I wear that very proudly, and I wear that on vacation, and it gets a lot of attention, so it's kind of funny. But people inquire, people inquire, why have you got your picture on there? I said, well, because I write for this website, so I'm promoting it, Then they go on the website, oh, wow. So it's kind of funny, and I'll tell you another funny story, too. I did a job for a company here. I was on contract, and I went there. And I'm walking through the workshop, and the guy approached me, goes, you look very familiar to me. And the photograph that I have on my website, some people may not like it, but anyway, I've got that on my phone. And, the guy says, I know you from somewhere. So I picked up my phone and I showed him the picture on the phone. He goes, oh my God. Then he realized who I was, and I kind of chuckled. It was kind of funny, you get recognized like that. And I'll tell you, I get a lot of people that do email me from all over the world, and they do ask me a lot of questions. And there's a lot of nice people that I've actually spoken to. Sometimes I actually do phone them. And then there are some people, though, that write on the site, and I get bombarded with negativity. People saying, that more or less I'm an idiot, which I expected. I'm certainly not an idiot. I know there's something going on, and the evidence that I've collected suggests that there's something going on out there. And that's all I can really go on, is some of the stuff that I've noticed with our planet is a lot of the weather changes. For example, extreme heat, floods. I'll give you an example. In India, in 2016, temperature went to 51 degrees. Even the roads were melting. They've never had that before. Southwest U.S., 120 degrees Fahrenheit. There was 30 million people under a heat advisory. I don't remember that years ago happening. Kuwait, 54 degrees C, new record. Europe, Spain, for example, 103.5 degrees F. Britain, hottest July ever, 98.1 degrees F. France experienced 14,000 deaths due to the heat wave. They were mostly the elderly, but still, 14,000 people. That's a huge number. Pakistan, 1,200 people perished due to the heat wave. South America, 107.6 degrees F. Australia is experiencing the same sort of thing. Heat like they've never had before. So, this gets recorded or it gets put on the news, but it's not main news. It sort of comes on with the weather, and they just say, oh, they had a heat wave there, and it was such and such a temperature. Nobody makes a big deal on it in the news media. And it kind of made me wonder why, because to me that's big news. Then you get on the opposite extremes now, snowfalls. Kuwait had snow for the first time in January. Never seen snow before. Guadalupe, the Caribbean, in April, 8 inches of snow in the northern United Arab Emirates, in the UAE mountains. They had snow. Never had that before. Vietnam, January 26th, northern mountain provinces. It was that to my mind is amazing when you see, and they wonder, well, how come that's happened? Well, one of the reasons is they reckon that the Earth's axis is shifted, and I think that's why we're seeing all this extreme weather. When you look at volcanoes, for example, there's about 40 volcanoes erupting on the Ring of Fire, and for those of you who don't know what the Ring of Fire is, that's really where the fault lines are. So when you get some volcanoes that haven't erupted in over 300 years, all of a sudden become alive. Then you take Yellowstone. I know that in the summertime, they actually closed down one of the most used trails in Yellowstone. And I kind of wonder, why did they do that? They said it was for maintenance, but this was high season, so it kind of made me wonder. And from what I understand too is they've closed down some of the monitoring systems they have for that park. And there was a YouTube video that showed actually the animals leaving the park. So it kind of made me wonder. Now, how true that was, I can't confirm that. But all I saw was buffalo walking down, and it was a true video. I mean, it was the buffalo were walking down the road, all in a line. So I kind of wonder. It seemed kind of strange. But they were heading out the park, not in. So it kind of makes you wonder. So then, if you look at sinkholes, for example, I mean, up until recently, I'd never heard of a sinkhole. Up until a few years ago, never knew what that was, and certainly didn't know what caused it. So I wonder what causes sinkholes. And then some people had said, when they wrote in to one of the articles when I covered that, said, well, it's the erosion, the rocks eroding, or the burst pipe, main water pipe and stuff like that. But some of these are in regions where there is no pipes, there is no houses. It's just out in a wooded area, and then a big gaping hole opens up. So it kind of throws that explanation sort of out the window. I could imagine, yes, there might be some that were caused by that. I'm not ruling that out completely. But it's kind of strange that all these things are starting to appear now, all these changes. But what really upsets me is the fact is nobody is taking this information and piecing it all together, because what I did was I looked at this subject like a jigsaw puzzle. And if you remember when, you're listening, when you were kids, when you did a jigsaw puzzle, your parents will say, well, listen, get the outside pieces first. It makes it a lot easier to fill in the middle. So we never started from the middle because it was too difficult. So it's like I started building this jigsaw puzzle, piece by piece, and it took a long time. But now I'm starting to really see the picture come to light. The jigsaw puzzle is not complete, but it's about 2/3 done. And I'm starting to see things that, to my mind, are actually scary. What's happening around the world, not just for sinkholes and climate change and stuff like that. And even with the climate change, they blame it on global warming. And I kind of question that, because they say the North Pole's melting. Well, they're absolutely correct on that one. But from what I understand is there's an active volcano under the North Pole, which is melting the ice from the bottom up. It's not melting from the top down due to global warming. The Antarctic, for example, now has got more ice than it's ever had. So I kind of question the theory about global warming. And like I said, I wrote that in one of my articles too, and I took a lot of flack from people on that. Now, I don't know whether these are what they call government trolls who are paid to make me look bad or to discourage me from writing any more, but all I could figure was that I struck a nerve somewhere and got the reaction. So that's all I can deduce from that. But I haven't had a Men in Black at my door yet, so I think I'm okay for a while. But anyway.
For a little while. They're coming.
Yeah.
Hey, brother, let me tell you what. That's a profound statement, and it's probably just a matter of time for a lot of us here that dreaded, knock at the door.
Yeah. And then they say to you, we don't like what you're doing, you keep quiet, you know. So, but what I did read, which was quite true, which I was astounded at, how some astronomers that were studying this were going to publish papers on the fact that they found Planet X. Now these are guys that work in real professional, huge telescopes, infrareds or whatever. But it's funny how both that worked in there at several of these ones had met an untimely death. And that's happened to probably about 12 astronomers so far. So if I'm an astronomer and I know, because there's probably a tight-knit group, you know, they probably talk to each other all the time. So I can imagine that if they said to all their other colleagues, well, you know, we're going to publish this paper on Planet X News, and knowing what a controversial subject it is, then all of a sudden they meet an untimely death. Me, if I was an astronomer, would be thinking to myself, well, maybe it's not a good idea to publish any papers on this subject. You know, it's obviously an unhealthy thing to do. So that was quite a shocker, really, when I looked at that. I mean, some said they committed suicide, the other ones they drove over a cliff. But anyway, that was that. And the one thing that I did learn, I used to watch, I don't know whether you can remember this, is with Jesse Ventura with Conspiracy Theories. Do you remember that program?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's extremely credible.
Sorry?
I think the Ventura work is extremely credible, because a lot of that stuff I had been researching years before his show even came on TV, and even Alex Jones has had him join him on a couple of special episodes. So, and his work on the FEMA coffins and the FEMA camps is very impressive, very impressive.
Well, yeah, the FEMA camps, that's kind of scary, because it's just like the old concentration camps in Germany. And from what I understand with some of this, they have gas lines going into these places.
They have high incinerators. One of the researchers, and so why would you need those? Well, as you know, I'm sure from your research, the FEMA coffins are patented, and a lot of people try to debunk this, but you know what? There's no debunking the fact it's on the federal website, and that the FEMA coffins are patented as cremation container for cadavers. And one of the characteristics in the patent is the fact that the plastics collapses inward on the burning cadaver to contain the fumes. Now, they can hide that under the guise of, okay, we're trying to prevent, a pestilence or, bubonic plague spreading, and I understand that. But here's the thing: in Nazi Germany, the camps where they were burning people in Auschwitz, etc., the number one thing that gave away those camps was the smell of burning flesh. Okay, so you could read between the lines, and these facilities, a lot of them have these super high-powered incinerators that can, literally dissolve a 3-foot across tree trunk in a matter of seconds. So they can just, and you can fill in the blanks there.
You get vaporized, yeah, exactly. And I know that Jesse Ventura, went out and he actually photographed all these coffins that were stored in a field. And there were 3-tier coffins. And once he aired that on TV, after that they were gone. They moved them all. And there was a lot. I mean, this wasn't just a few. This was millions. And they moved them all. And he also did that story on the underground shelters that they build. I mean, you think about an underground bunker, sort of a bomb shelter that, most fairly wealthy people could purchase and stuff like that, sort of about the size of a couple of shipping containers or whatever. But these bunkers are a mile and a half down. They used a nuclear boring machine that was able to bore melt rock, which was a 60 feet diameter borehole. And what they've done is, from what I understand now, all of these are built in the central United States. There's none on the coast. That made me wonder, why would they not have them on the coast? But there's a reason. They bored down a mile and a half deep, and then they bored from state to state. So, and placed in there a 2-lane highway, as well as living quarters, shopping centers. They've got everything you can possibly. They've got machine shops. They've got everything you can possibly think of that we have on top of the surface. So these places that they have are for government, military, and the elite. So, and I believe that they've already been sort of predetermined who they want there. I mean, there's be doctors, nurses, dentists. There'll be all kinds of professions under there. And when things do happen, when things go bad, so it kind of makes me wonder, because I researched other countries to see what they were doing, and Russia had built 5,000, not as complex as the one in the U.S., but they built 5,000 underground shelters. China's done the same. They've got a whole complex, even though it's above ground, for living quarters that are sitting there empty. There's thousands upon thousands of them. So you kind of wonder, why? Why are they all doing this? Switzerland, I'll give you a good example, has enough bunkers to encompass the whole entire population. So they're looking after their own people. But that's Swiss. They're like that. And Britain's the same thing. They've got them. They're all over the place. And a lot of these fairly wealthy countries. In the third world countries, no. But in the sort of the wealthier countries, definitely they do. And in Finland, they have this seed bank. I don't know whether you know about that, but they've got every possible seed from every possible plant you could possibly think of stored there. Now, to my mind, is why would they do that when everything's fine on the planet? We've got seeds everywhere, sort of like, the plants growing. So why would they feel the need to build a huge complex and have millions upon millions of seeds in a vault? So I find that really strange. And I believe that these underground facilities, some of them are actually built so they can actually house airplanes, helicopters, and the ones in the U.S., I believe that they can move troops underground now from state to state without being in the open on the highway. And I've seen videos of tanks being on rail cars. I mean, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of tanks. I mean, the rail car was like probably a mile long. It was unbelievable. And why did they need all these tanks? So when you look at all that sort of information, you're gathering this and you're reading this, it's the hardest part of this is when you have a discussion, when you meet somebody, is to tell them in 10 or 15 minutes what you learned in 6 years. Can't possibly do it. So they look at you like you've got a camel, a camel with two heads, and they sort of snicker at you and away they go. And so I've decided not to ever try and persuade anybody that this is true. I just say, if you're interested in the subject, there's the website, planetxnews.com. As I go in there and read my stories, and then said, if you've got any questions, you can email me. But I've never had an email. Not from the people I sort of meet in the street, so to speak. But another thing too is like I said, these sinkholes. I mean, they're not just common to the U.S. These sinkholes that we were talking about earlier, they're all over the place. They're in Belize, Venezuela, Guatemala, Canada.
What is your take? What is your take on those freaky, weird? They're calling them sinkholes, but I'm like, nah, come on. I wasn't born in a barn. They're over Siberia. There's one, I think, down in Latin America and a couple of different places, and they're perfectly round, almost like a giant drill the size of a skyscraper bored a hole into the earth. What do you think those are? What are they?
I don't. You know what? It's really weird. I remember watching the movie of was it Alien versus Predator, and they actually bored a hole within a matter of seconds with a laser.
Wow.
Some sort of laser, anyway. So if you look at that movie, and that's what these reminded me of, because the one in Russia was 80 meters wide, and they don't even know what the depth is. That's how far down it's gone. They couldn't even measure the depth.
I know they're freaked out about it because when you read the articles, you see the evidence of how weirded out they are because they're bringing in additional scientific teams to look into it. They know more, I think, than they're willing to admit because, come on, man, that is not a natural occurrence. There is no possible way. Sinkholes, when they break up, it's the earth crust giving way, and it's very random. It's a fractal pattern at best. You're not going to have a perfectly bored out round circle.
You're correct.
otherworldly, something otherworldly is causing that. We do not have the technology on this earth to cause that to happen.
Not with the sizes that we're talking. I mean, you're
Right.
talking about something 80 meters wide and depth unknown. We don't have anything to do that. It would take us. I mean, we could have a boring machine, but that would be about it. But to actually melt rock and actually really round, and some of those are underwater too. So how do you do that? That really boggles my mind. But you know what really convinced me about this stuff that possibly could be true? I always watched the moon as a kid, and I don't know if you ever heard the term "the man in the moon," the face.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard that term?
Sure. Absolutely.
Okay. So then, I looked at the man in the moon face even as a kid, from 8 years old, and it was always there. It never moved, because it's got no internal engine to make the moon move. It just floats out there, so nothing can make it move. So I'm looking at it one day and went, there's something wrong with the moon. It had tilted 90 degrees. So the face, instead of being kind of up and down, was now sideways. And I looked at it, and I got my binoculars out, and I'll tell you where you can have a reference. And the reference that I use is, there's a huge crater called Tycho. And Tycho usually sits, if the moon's in the correct position that it should be in, sits at around about the 5 o'clock position. Now, this Tycho was now sitting about the 8 o'clock position. And I've seen this actually move both ways. And it only seems to go 90 degrees. It doesn't do a complete 360. It only seems to go 90 degrees each way. And I thought to myself, well, what kind of force could do that? It's got to be something, I would think, highly magnetic. But I mean, I thought that was really strange, and I looked at it even yesterday, and there it was. It had rotated. Sometimes it'll rotate back the next morning. So if I get up early enough, and I always do get up early, if I get up early, I can see the fact it's moved back again. I'm thinking, how does it do that? It baffles me. I don't know if you got any explanation on that one, but you're going to go watch the moon, aren't you, tonight?
Well, you know,
Yeah.
So here's the thing. I'll toss this over the wall. You know, not because I know anything, but I'll just share something that another expert wrote. This was published on Cornell University by a scientist named Lorenzo Lorio. Okay, and the title of the paper is On the Anomalous Secular Increase of the Eccentricity of the Orbit of the Moon. And the abstract says, I'm going to kind of breeze over some of it because it's mathematics and it's not relevant to people that don't get that stuff like me. But it goes on and says, recent analysis of a lunar ranging LLR, lunar laser ranging recording spanning of 38.7 years revealed an anomalous increase in the eccentricity of the lunar orbit amounting to, and then it goes into the math, the present-day models of the dispositive phenomenon occurring in the interiors of both the Earth and the Moon are not able to explain it. In this paper, we examine several dynamic effects not modeled in the data analysis in the framework of long-range modified models of gravity and the standard Newtonian-Einsteinian paradigm. It turns out that none of them can accommodate the mathematics. It says many of them do not even induce long-term changes in E. Other models do, instead yield such an effect, but the resulting magnitudes are in disagreement with E. In particular, in general, relativistic gravitomagnetic acceleration of the Moon due to the Earth's angular momentum has the right order of magnitude, but the resulting Lenzo-Thirring secular effect for the eccentricity vanishes. This is vital, a potentially viable Newtonian candidate for this cause and effect would be the trans-Plutonian massive object of, in brackets, Planet X, Nemesis, Tyche, since it actually would be an effect of E with a non-vanishing long-term variation. This was published on Cornell University on April 25th of 2011. And again, it's Lorio, O-R-I-O, on the anomalous secular increase of the eccentricity of the orbit of the Moon. People know stuff, but you know what I mean? It's like it gets buried in the aftermath of all the other noise.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, and you take the mainstream news, which is now controlled so tightly that nothing gets out. They're only brainwashing you to what they want you to believe. And a lot of this information, I mean, someone could do a whole program on this, like Discovery Channel or somebody, put all the pieces together and, do a really sort of bang-up job on it and make people, aware of what the possibilities are. But again, the government doesn't want that to happen because they want you to get up in the morning and get your breakfast, jump in your car, go to work, be a good little boy and pay your taxes, right until the very end. And that's exactly what they want you to do. They don't want you to know the truth. They've been hiding so much truth from you forever.
Doomsday Dave, God bless you. Glad you're here.
Well, I've never had an introduction like that before. That was pretty good with the trumpets.
Oh, yeah, it's the shofar of Jesus Christ coming. Hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus. We're just blessed to have you, Brother Dave. We know that the Planet X news site is just absolutely overflowing with stuff having to do with Planet X. And I'm just going to go ahead. Now, I'm here, so if you want to toss the microphone back my way or whatever, feel free. But I'm just going to kind of fade back into the background and let you go ahead and share with people the whole gamut. What have you learned? What's up with this Planet X? What does the Earth need to be expecting to happen? Where do you think it is? What do you think the prognosis is of this whole, event or series of events that are coming? How do you think it interplays with World War III across the Earth? Just kind of give us the full gamut of your research and some of the stuff that, and also share with us your testimony as well. And I'll just go ahead and I'll be right here with my mic mute on if you need me or you want to ask, pass the mic over my way. But I'm just going to go ahead and let you go ahead and share with people, the listeners, this awesome research that you have done and a little bit about your testimony, brother.
Yeah, I'll start basically from the beginning, how I got interested in it, and feel free to interject any time. I mean, that's fine. I'm okay with that, no problem. And I appreciate you having me on this show. And I'll tell you, I heard about Planet X probably about 6 years ago, and I've always been interested in the cosmos and aliens and all that sort of stuff since I was a little kid. And I've always, looked out there and wondered all the time. But anyway, I work as an independent contractor, and I usually work in the nuclear business. And a colleague of mine had mentioned this to me, and I sort of gave him a sort of a side glance because I thought, yeah, right, this can't be real. And but it got my curiosity up, so I decided I'd get on the net and I'd start to look for stuff. Well, I found a mountain, literally a mountain of information. But I also, after a little bit of time, realized a lot of it was misinformation. And that's what we've got to be really careful of about, what we read and what we listen to, whether it is factual or whether it's, hype. So after going through many, many sites, I came across planetxnews.com. And I have to say that I found that particular site, I don't know, I'm giving a bit of a plug, but it's true. I found that particular site really, really informative, and it wasn't full of hype. So I really enjoyed reading some of the stories that were on that. And I'll tell you, I'll be honest with you, it took me about 2 years of research before I'd even believe the fact that there's a possibility there's a Planet X out there and heading our way. So it did. It took me a long time. And it took me a long time to filter through all the stuff. Who do I believe and who do I not believe? So it's a very difficult subject because, like I said, there's been a lot of misinformation in there, such as, when you get to the millennium, they reckon the aircrafts are going to fall out of the sky. You get 2013, California's going to fall into the ocean, and you're going to be raining down meteors and so forth. So even like the movie. And none of this happened, so people obviously think, well, this is all full of baloney. And, I mean, some of it obviously was, because it never happened. But I think that was sort of a, sort of Peter crying wolf, so to speak. And I think that once I'd filtered through it all, there was a few people that I did sort of listen to and sort of respected, for their research and what they did. And there was one guy there by the name of Marshall Masters who actually went down to the Antarctic because he said that, and according to Zachariah Stitchin, that it would come from below the equator, from the ecliptic, below the ecliptic. So that would be the point of it coming by our planet. Now, I don't believe that Planet X is going to crash into our planet by any means, but I know that the excuse me, the wings of this planet are millions and millions of miles long, and it's got obviously two wings, and it's bringing with it a lot of debris. It's pushing a lot of debris ahead of it, but it's also bringing a lot of debris with it. And in that debris would be meteors, so forth, that would actually rain down on the Earth, much like that movie 2013. So I kind of wonder, whether there's a relationship between the government and Hollywood, when they're putting it out there, just sort of let us know this is what's coming, but, they sort of advertise it as fiction. But anyway, so I delved into this quite a bit, and I do visit a few other sites as well, just